Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Answering Bart Ehrman. And today we're going to look at another contradiction that Bart says is in the Bible. And this has to do with what happened to Jesus the day after he was baptized. So this is on page 40 and 41 of his book. Jesus Interrupted. So Matthew, can you take us away, please?
Yeah, so we're in the middle of a section where he's kind of giving a number of really quick examples that are like a paragraph each. So this thing is the second one. Where was Jesus the day after he was baptized? In Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the so-called synoptic gospels, Jesus, after his baptism, goes off into the wilderness where he will be tempted by the devil. Mark especially is quite clear about the matter, for he states, after telling of the baptism, that Jesus left, quote, immediately for the wilderness. What about John? In John, there is no account of Jesus being tempted by the devil in the wilderness. The day after John the Baptist has borne witness to the Spirit descending on Jesus as a dove at baptism, he sees Jesus again and declares him to be the Lamb of God. John is explicit, stating that this occurred, quote, the next day. Jesus then starts gathering his disciples around him and launches into his public ministry by performing his miracle of turning water into wine. That's in chapter 2 of John. So where was Jesus the next day? It depends on which gospel you read.
Okay, so let's make sure that we don't misrepresent his argument. He's saying here that Matthew, Mark, and Luke all record the narrative of Jesus being baptized by John the Baptist, and that the next day or immediately after, he goes into the wilderness for his temptations and trials.
That's his claim.
Whereas he's saying the gospel of according to John, the next day doesn't have him doing that.
Yep, has him doing something else.
Yeah, and so I'll just read that last sentence again. So where was Jesus the next day? It depends on which gospel you read. Now, I just want to say we can answer this one almost in one sentence. And it's simply that the gospel according to John does not even record John the Baptist baptizing Jesus at all. It doesn't record the narrative, right? It doesn't have the narrative. So how can you even tell what happened the next day? Right? We'll look at that in a moment. But the irony is that Bart has actually just said this on the previous page.
Yeah, he has.
So on page 39, he says, the baptism is not narrated in John. Right? So if the baptism's not narrated in John, how can you say what happened the next day?
It's all about the next day in relation to what, isn't it? So in Mark's gospel, we've got the next day or immediately afterwards going into the wilderness to be tempted. But what's the thing before the next day in John? Well, it's actually John the Baptist recalling what's happened in the past. Yeah. It's not actually the baptism itself.
I mean, we can answer this one quickly, but let's put the verses up for everyone.
Yeah.
So here it is in Mark. In those days, Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And when he came up out of the water, immediately he saw the heavens being torn open and the Spirit descending on him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, "You are my beloved Son. With you I am well pleased." The Spirit immediately drove him out into the wilderness, and he was in the wilderness 40 days being tempted by Satan. So there it is. That's the narrative of John actually doing it to Jesus and what happened.
Yep.
However, if you look at the account in the Gospel according to John, it says the next day, and so that this is John. He's been talking to some leaders from Jerusalem. It says the next day John saw Jesus coming towards him, and he said, "Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. This is he of whom I said, after me comes a man who ranks before me, because he was before me. I myself did not know him, but for this purpose I came baptizing with water, that he might be revealed to Israel." And John bore witness, "I saw the Spirit descend on him like a dove and remain on him." So there we have it. That's not the narrative of the baptism.
No.
Right?
It's John later having a conversation where he recalls the baptism. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So again, I don't know. What do you say there? the man
Well,
saying,
yeah,
well,
it's
it
just
depends which gospel you read.
has he just not read it carefully? Like,
Well, the problem is
what you
in verse 39, he acknowledges that the narrative is not there.
Oh, in page 39 of his book, yes.
Yeah, in page 39, he says it's not there. And then the very next page, he's saying, oh, it's a different event. What happens after Jesus after this time? So again, I just want to encourage people who think that Bart Ehrman is a careful scholar just to go and read and check what he says, because that's all we're doing here. And what we've seen is that this is just sensationalism. It is baseless sensationalism. So look, we'll finish up there for today, and please subscribe to the channel, and we shall see you next week, where we'll be looking at what happened to Jairus's daughter. Was she dead or alive? And we'll see what Bart's got to say about that. So we'll see you next week. Bye.